Welcome to Sacrilegious Discourse.
I'm husband.
And I'm wife.
Together we're reading the Bible for the very first time.
We grew up without religion and wanted to know what all the fuss was about.
Well, what have we learned so far?
That God is a dick, and apparently some people believe in talking donkeys.
We're not trying to pass ourselves off as experts.
Nope, we're just reading the Bible for the first time and giving our first take reaction.
If you'd like to join us in this venture, you might consider starting at episode 1.
Otherwise, jump in wherever you like.
All right, let's go read the Bible.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Hey wife, did you know that Anchor is sponsoring our show?
Really? Don't we use Anchor to distribute our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts?
Yeah, and we are on just about every other platform available as well, thanks to them.
Why do we use Anchor as our podcasting service?
Well, they make editing and distributing our show a breeze.
What if one of our listeners wants to start their own podcast?
Then they should head over to anchor.fm or download the app to get started.
Awesome! You guys should go do that right now! Husband!
Wife!
What are we doing today?
We're doing our Q&A and our wrap-up, I believe.
Of First Kings.
That's right, yeah.
Yep, that is what we're doing.
Okay, and you got anything to tell us about that scenario that we're getting into here today?
Yeah, we are going to be going over that question about spirits.
Okay, yeah.
And do a little summary of First Kings. And normally we would do a pop quiz, but all the pop quizzes are over First and Second Kings combined, since it was originally one book.
So we'll just hold out for the end of
right.
Kings in general.
Yeah, we'll do a pop quiz over First and Second Kings.
Okay, that sounds good. Yep.
All right.
I mean, so far we could just say there's been a lot of kings.
Yeah.
You know?
There sure as fuck have.
Yeah, we won that quiz.
Woo!
All right, let's get into this Q&A/wrap-up.
Okie dokie.
Hey wife, do you like coffee in the morning?
I sure do, husband. Morning, noon, night. Which reminds me, I need to add that to our grocery list because we're running low.
Wait, before you do that, check out the website ungodlybrew.com where you can purchase a pound of your favorite flavor of coffee.
What if I want more than 1 pound?
Either order a larger amount, or better yet, get 10% off by setting up a subscription for every 2 weeks, or a month, or whatever works for you.
Did you set up something special for our listeners?
You know I did. Exclusive for our listeners, get an additional 10% off subscriptions by entering the code SACRILEGIOUSCOFFEE at checkout.
That's a hellishly good deal.
Ungodly Brew is hellishly good coffee.
Okay, so before we talk about the spirits, let's go over the scene in which the spirits were discussed.
Okay.
Do you remember what happened?
I kind of remember that there was a spirit, but and he did something for God.
Okay,
that's the most I got right now.
That is like pretty far from a good summary.
Yeah, no, it was a really bad summary.
Okay, so there was a prophet, and what's his name? Ahab was like, oh, I don't want to talk to that guy. He always gives me shitty prophecies.
Right.
And we thought he was going to pull Elijah out of his ass, right?
Yeah.
But no, it was some dude named Micaiah.
Right, yeah. Well, what the fuck was that all about?
So I looked him up just to get a little dig on him.
Yeah.
It didn't say a lot about him. His name is Hebrew for who is like Yah.
Okay.
Not the whole Yahweh or Yahweh.
Right.
Just
but
Yah.
Who's Yah?
Part of the whole Yahweh thing,
sure.
probably.
All right.
And he is one of the 4 disciples of Elijah.
Oh.
Okay. So
that's
I don't know if
interesting.
that's something that we'll learn in the coming book.
I mean, you would have thought that, so like if it was going to be a disciple, since they've talked about Elisha, you would have thought it would have been Elisha that did this and not like...
Right.
But okay.
But let's keep in mind that these were originally one book. So we might learn more about him later.
True.
Also keep in mind that there's this whole other set of books that we're missing.
Right.
And he may have been discussed more in those.
Okay.
So I don't feel like I'm giving away a spoiler or ruining anything by saying that he is one of the 4 disciples of Elijah.
Okay.
Yep. That's basically all I could find on him.
Got it.
Okay.
Which is next to nothing.
Right. Next to nothing. He's very godly, according to his name.
Sure.
And he follows Elijah.
Okay.
Okay. So he comes and he's giving Ahab, call me Ishmael. He's giving him sarcastic, like, sure, yeah, you're totally gonna win, whatevs.
Right.
And then Ahab's like, okay, I can hear you being sarcastic. Tell me the truth. And then Micaiah's like, okay, I'm gonna tell you the truth. You're not gonna fucking like it. You're gonna fucking lose.
Yep.
Because guess what God told me?
You're gonna lose.
And then he repeats this scene that happened. And it is in that scene where he basically was watching God talk to his host or something.
Right.
And it doesn't specifically say host of what or host of who, but it's his host.
Okay.
And God talks to the host and is like, what should we do? Give me some advice. What are your ideas? And then one of the hosts is like, ooh, I know, I could put some lies into the mouths of those 400 prophets. Yeah. And God's like, oh my God, that is so cool. I mean, yeah, let's totally do that.
Sure.
And the person who said that, or the entity that said that, was the spirit.
Okay, right.
So I had to get into all that before we get into what is a spirit. Okay. So let's talk about the scene a little bit more, though. Okay, some rabbis accept that the scene described by Micaiah literally occurred in heaven.
Okay.
So Micaiah was like a witness. He was in heaven watching this unfold.
Okay. Yeah.
And further on in the Bible, Yahweh warns against false prophecies.
Right.
So it's kind of weird because yet Yahweh's actions to allow false prophecies to be given.
Right.
Are deliberate and intentional and go entirely against that.
Yeah, it's not just later in the Bible. They've talked about false prophecies earlier in the Bible too.
Right, but he will specifically say it.
Right, but it we've talked about God being a dick before, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, just a couple of times.
Yeah, just once or twice.
But like, if he's literally not making people, but coercing people into giving false prophecies. Mm-hmm. Then he is directly responsible for them being false prophets. And so when he's punishing people for being false prophets, that he caused them, like, where does this circle of bullshit ever end?
Okay, so that is a great question, because from everything I could find, there is intense debate over whether or not God actually forced people to do false prophecies. Okay. The apologists and like the Bible scholars or whatever who are like into it.
Right.
They will say, okay, first of all, God did not do it himself. He merely allowed this to happen.
Okay.
And so, right. But follow me here for a second.
I'm following.
I don't know how familiar you are with the book of Job, which we haven't got to yet.
Right. I know that it's like, there's a lot of shit that's gonna, like, that's a crazy book.
That is a crazy book. The devil is like, I bet if I fuck with this dude, he'll totally switch teams.
Right.
And God's like, I'll take that bet.
Yeah.
And so that is often what they will use as an example of God allowing evil to do its thing while not being the one who does it himself.
Okay.
So that's one of the defenses.
But
okay.
Okay.
I know. But you're walking in a circle here, my guy.
Right. And I'm sorry, but like, he has not presented himself enough to the people of Israel, or let's not even talk about today and now.
Right.
Right. There is no fucking God. Like, as far as I'm concerned, that's a moot point and whatever. But even in the Bible times, he did not present himself enough for these people to know who he was versus who anybody else was that's talking to them. Right. If there's some fucking entity that's godlike talking to them, it's God, right? I mean, that's...
Well, okay, but there's more arguments against this.
Okay.
So, I mean, I totally agree with you. I'm just telling you what the apologists say, okay?
Sure.
I'm not trying to convince you, okay? So there's more arguments against that, though. There is one view that, of course, this never fucking happened. It was Micaiah doing poetic license.
Right.
But let me get to that in a second.
I got a question real quick. Mm-hmm. Being an apologist sounds like a full-time job. Do you think they have good benefits? Like, I mean...
Oh my gosh.
I'm just...
You're dumb. You're dumb. So others reject this entire view, arguing that God could not have sent false prophecy since prophecy is true by definition, right?
Then
like
why...
there is no... Hold on, let me finish.
Okay.
There is no such thing as false prophecy because that is two words that are opposite to each other.
So when someone prophesizes and it turns out to be false, what is that then?
It wasn't a prophecy.
Okay.
Is what they're saying.
Okay. All right.
It's like when we say hot water heater, you're not heating hot water. You're heating water to make it hot, right? It's a misphrasing. We know what you mean by it, but it's not correct phrasing.
Okay.
So anyway, instead they argue that Micaiah actually fabricated this vivid scene using poetic dramatization in an attempt to frighten and thereby prevail upon Ahab.
Got it.
And I found this next point really, really interesting. Keep in mind, this event appears to occur after Ahab's repentance for Baal worship. Remember, he was like busted out, and then he put on the potato sack and was like, sorry.
Yeah.
Right. So this happened after that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So his prophets appear to be prophets of Yahweh, not Baal.
What?
Albeit the Yahweh who was worshipped via golden calves. Remember we talked about that?
Yeah.
Rather than the Yahweh who was worshipped in the temple at Jerusalem.
Okay, but how do you distinguish between the Yahweh that was worshipped via golden calves versus the Baal that's worshipped via golden calves versus whatever the fuck they're worshiping?
Well, these were not Jezebel's prophets. These were his prophets.
Right, but Jezebel was Asherah and Asherah.
Right.
And he was Baal. And they specifically at some point said Baal in that last chapter that we wrote, I thought. I'm just... That's what I recalled.
I don't remember well enough to argue with you. I'm just saying I find it interesting that we literally in our Q&A, or not our Q&A, what was it? It was whatever we did a few days ago. No, it definitely would have been our Q&A on Saturday. That we talked about the difference between the two nations, North and South, was that they both worshipped Yahweh,
right?
But one did it the more ancient way that Aaron did.
Got it.
Right?
Okay.
So that's where this is coming from.
Yep.
And that makes a lot of sense. These people don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
They're just worshiping whatever.
Right.
I mean,
well, it turns out you probably, they only did mention, I just did a quick search here, and Baal is only mentioned once, and that's when King Ahab's son, Aziah, he worshipped him, and at the very end of the chapter there. Yeah. But other than that, Baal was not actually specifically mentioned in that chapter, so.
Okay.
I guess that could be the case. I wasn't trying to argue with you. I just swore I remembered that Baal was mentioned in there, which he was, but just not where I thought he was. So.
Right. I kind of like the way this is phrased,
Yeah.
That what they were worshiping was an older kind of thing.
Right.
So, still wrong, but closer to home.
Sure. Yeah.
So, in ancient times, all the way through the Old Testament, God is seen as the sovereign deity with all other beings under his command and for his use. Right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not until New Testament times, which obviously we haven't got into,
right,
that you will see the idea of a kingdom of Satan or evil spirits in rebellion against the kingdom of God.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So in the New Testament, Satan and the evil spirits are enemies of God and humanity, and Jesus comes to deal with them. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
That's what the whole New Testament is about.
Right.
Right? So basically, human ideas about the spirit world evolved over time, and the Bible reflects that evolution. So when Kings was written, the book of Kings, it wouldn't have been a weird idea for God to make use of evil spirits. This is going back to the argument maybe they are talking about spirits, right?
Right.
For us, with our ideas of very strict good and evil and like what are spirits, it sounds very strange to us.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So this would have been normal to them.
Okay.
So there's that. Okay. Micaiah's prophecy is the earliest example in the Hebrew Bible of a representation of a heavenly throne room. I found that very interesting. Which, I don't recall hearing about a heavenly anything, really.
Right. No, I mean, actually, most of the stuff that they discussed up to this point have been almost earthbound. Like
God in the fire,
ark and
God in the
his
wind.
seat on the ark and stuff like that. And it's all very earthbound until that moment. Yeah.
And that moment was all of a sudden God is all heavenly and whatnot.
Right,
He's over there.
Yeah.
He's in space.
Yeah.
Sky Daddy.
Right.
So it's not clear whether the heavenly throne room represents Micaiah's own belief or a depiction of Ahab's court prophets or what.
Got it.
Because, I mean, obviously there's no such thing as a real throne room up in the sky.
Right.
So, okay, so here is the specific verse where the word spirit is mentioned. Okay?
Yeah.
And then there came forth a spirit and stood before the Lord and said, I will persuade him. Like, remember that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, a lot of scholars think that the article a spirit should actually read the spirit per the Hebrew translation.
Okay.
So, there came forth the spirit. And then that gets into the question, but what are spirits? Right?
So is this like the Catholic, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost thing where there's multiple iterations of the same God? Or?
Maybe, but that's not where I'm going with this. Okay.
And I don't even really know what that means, honestly, because I'm just kind of speaking out of my ass there.
Right.
I don't understand what the Trinity is exactly.
I've heard it described as like ice water versus water. They're the same thing, but in different forms.
Got it.
And so God as the Spirit and God as Jesus and God as the Heavenly Father are like all actually the same thing at the same time.
Okay.
But it's just
it's like an electron that can exist in two places at once?
Yes. it's a cat.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a cat in a box.
Right.
Yeah. So what are spirits, right? Back to the original question.
Sure.
Okay. So there are some that argue that they might be fallen angels. Like, remember, God does have angels that fell.
Yeah.
Right? And, Satan is the big one of those.
Right.
But there are others who followed him.
Okay.
So, and they would be in his host.
Sure.
And if anybody was going to volunteer, it would certainly be them. Right?
Right.
So then there is the argument that no, it's not just any fallen angel. It's the evil spirit.
So we're talking about Satan.
Father of lies, the old deceiver. So, he would be the one.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, then there are a few that put forth the idea that, I don't know, maybe it was the spirit of Naboth. Remember, Naboth was the guy who had the grapevines that he didn't want to give up his land, right?
Yeah.
And so apparently there's a Jewish legend that says that it is the spirit of Naboth seeking revenge on Ahab.
Huh.
So I don't.
So ghost stories, huh?
Yeah, and I don't think that has like a lot of credence. Not that any of these do.
No,
but
right.
like
yeah.
That theory the
least. As far as which theory that was meant to be the case.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
And then the last suggestion that I saw was, what if it's the spirit of God Himself? Like, what? God's talking to Himself,
right? Well, I could believe that. He's very arrogant and whatever, aggrandizing.
I don't know.
So
I have no idea.
Yeah.
So basically, we had a question and did not answer it at all.
Yay us!
But
we're awesome.
We learned a lot.
Yeah.
So now let's do a summary of the book of 1 Kings.
Okay.
The book of 1 Kings is a compilation of various records of the acts of the kings of Israel and Judah by a Deuteronomic compiler.
Oh, okay.
In the 7th century BCE, with a supplement added in the 6th century BCE.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting.
Right.
1 Kings provides an account of the death of David. I forgot this went back that far.
Right.
We had so many fucking kings.
Yeah, no, I know.
Okay. So it covered the death of David, the reign of his son Solomon, and the decline and division of the kingdom of Israel after Solomon and many of his successors turned to idol worship.
I just don't believe that Solomon was as good as he said he was.
He wasn't.
I don't believe that.
He wasn't.
And then that was the guy that we were trying to think of the other day, where he all of a sudden in the very end of the chapter,
like 1,000 wives.
Right. It's almost like somebody else, like you know how we talked about Bathsheba and him were writing this, memoir of him, right? It's almost like somebody got this and they're like, this is ridiculous. We need to cut him down here a little bit.
And
so
they snuck in
just
last
throw
bit.
this last bit on there. Yeah.
The book of 1 Kings also recounts the ministry of the prophet Elijah among the northern 10 tribes of Israel.
Okay.
Which, I mean, did it really cover that? Vague. Little bit it. So,
and then that really just kind of came, like we talked about at the time, that really just kind of popped out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's a prophet.
And then, there's another one.
Right.
Micaiah. By Micaiah.
It was all kings and now prophet. Ooh,
yeah.
Prophet.
Yeah. Book of Prophets. What?
Right.
So I found this really cool outline, and it breaks up First Kings into 3 little sections.
Okay. Yeah.
And apparently this is how the book is commonly broken up.
Okay.
Okay. So First Kings chapters 1 through 11.
All right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the first 11 chapters are King David has his son Solomon anointed king.
Sure.
Right? And then he dies.
Yeah.
Solomon rules his kingdom with great wisdom, builds a temple, and erects his palace with a giant tub called the Sea at Jerusalem.
Yeah,
right?
good shit.
The Queen of Sheba visits Solomon.
Yep.
Solomon's many wives lure him away from worshiping the Lord and encourage him to worship false gods.
Right.
So then Solomon's kingdom is threatened by Jeroboam. Okay?
Right.
So that's the first 11 chapters.
Okay.
And, I had forgotten that it went back that far.
Right.
In 22 chapters.
Yeah.
Right? All of this happened.
Yep.
That's ridiculous. So then in the next 4 chapters, chapters 12 through 16, all the tribes of Israel except Judah and Benjamin rebel against Solomon's son Rehoboam.
Okay.
The kingdom is divided, and Jeroboam becomes the ruler of the northern kingdom, a.k.a. Israel.
Right.
Leaving Rehoboam to rule the southern kingdom, a.k.a. Judah.
Yeah, that.
I was expecting you to pipe up.
I apologize.
Jeroboam and Rehoboam both establish idol worship in their kingdoms.
Right, I remember that.
And many rulers of both kingdoms follow this pattern of idol worship.
Yeah,
okay?
I mean, because they aren't actually taught what God is, and they don't talk to God, and they don't know who God is, so.
Exactly. So the final couple chapters 17 through 22, the prophet Elijah causes a drought in the land. Right. And magically resurrects a widow's dead son.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Elijah wins a fire lighting competition against the priests of Baal and shows that Jehovah is God.
Or he's really good at lighting fires.
One or the other.
You know?
Yeah.
It's one of those.
Jezebel, the wife of King Ahab and a supporter of Baal, tries to kill Elijah.
Yeah.
So he travels to Mount Horeb, which is also Mount Sinai.
Right.
Where the Lord reveals himself in a whisper.
Yeah, not the strong wind and not the earthquake and not the fire.
Exactly.
But the whisper.
The whisper.
The gentle wind.
It started with a whisper. Elijah meets Elisha, who will succeed him as prophet. Elijah prophesies the deaths of Ahab and Jezebel. And then Ahaziah, the son of Ahab, reigns in wickedness.
Yeah, he does.
And that's
that.
That is that. That is a lot of shit that went down in 22 chapters.
Well, I mean, the Bible's very clunky. Like it doesn't transition well.
It really does not.
It's not a good story.
It's not a good story.
It's it has its moments where it's fun to make fun of it. Mm-hmm. And it even has its moments where it's interesting a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's not a good story.
It's really
It's really a bad story.
It's really a bad story, and it's very frustrating because I love learning stuff. So I'm like, ooh, this is interesting. And then it's like over stupid shit.
But you know what, though? I have to say, if it wasn't a bad story, we wouldn't have as much fun with this.
That's not necessarily true.
Well,
I could make fun of a good story.
Right, but I mean, like...
I could make fun of Twilight.
Right,
Twilight at least had solid storyline all the way through.
And really,
right?
if we ever do we should do like a live watching of the movie Wings with our.
That's funny.
So, just a quick story here aside.
Yeah. Totally off topic.
Yeah, we watched. We had a thought that we were going to watch all of the Oscar-nominated movies over time. Back. And one of the first ones was Wings, which is like a silent film from like the 1940s or something. And
it used real footage from World War I?
Two.
And
wife basically narrated the whole thing for us.
Oh yeah, I did.
Not what it was actually saying, but what wife wanted it to say.
Well, okay, there were naked butts in it.
There sure were.
And it was a shock.
Our child was like dying.
Scandalized.
I mean, it was great.
Scandalized.
It was hilarious.
To be fair, we were not expecting those butts.
No, we were not. It was quite a long line of 1940s butts.
Yeah.
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 It was, yeah.
But it was a really neat movie, and it was a fun experience. And
it actually was not a half bad movie for
really
a silent movie and the time and all that. So
I can see why it was nominated for an Oscar.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
But it was much more fun and entertaining with the commentary.
It would have been boring without my additions.
I'm just saying. I feel the same way about the Bible. Like, if it didn't have our commentary, then people would be like, this is boring shit. They're just fucking reading the Bible.
I wondered what the connection was. I wasn't there. Okay,
oh, okay.
Now I get it. I get it. Yeah. I make it fun.
Right. Okay. I'm making it fun, too.
But I make it more fun.
I hope I'm making it fun.
You are fun to my fun.
Okay. So I'm only like secondary fun. You're like top notch fun, huh?
Fuck yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you're the smarty here. I'm the dum dum.
Well, we're all in trouble then. All right. Well, that was our First Kings Q&A and wrap up. So tomorrow we're going to be back with our contradictions episode, which my wife so fondly refers to as
"You're always wrong."
Correct. And then we have, like I said the other day, another special episode that we're going to have on Friday. So join us for that. I do want to remind everybody that we will be in Kentucky this weekend, down at the Kentucky Free Thought Convention. And just so you're aware, there are still tickets available. It is $10 online or $15 at the door. And we would love to see you there. And if you do show up, make sure you come to our booth and tell us. And we're handing out free samples of our ungodly brewed coffee. So stop by and see us. Please.
I want to meet you.
Right? Yeah. All right. We'll hopefully see you guys there. If not, we will see you tomorrow for the Contradictions episode.
Yep. Bye.
Hey, wife, I guess that's the end?
But husband, that's just sad.
It doesn't have to be. We are on lots of social media platforms like Twitter. Our handle there is sacrilegious_D.
For D's nuts.
Oh my God. Stop doing that. Anyway, we're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. There's a link to all of our social media sites at our website.
Ooh, we have a website?
Yeah, it's sacrilegiousdiscourse.com, where you can also find a link to our merch shop.
We have a merch shop?
Yep. We have podcast-themed clothing, mugs, notebooks, and more, as well as an atheist and science-themed products.
Wow, our fans should really go check that out right now.
Definitely. They can get in touch with us by sending an email to sacrilegiousdiscourse@gmail.com. But before they do that, we could really use some help.
Oh yeah? With what?
Well, it's not free running the podcast, and we need some financial support in order to get better equipment, which will free up time so we can concentrate on our podcast and our fans.
Okay, so what should they do?
Head over to patreon.com/sacrilegiousdiscourse and sign up as a contributor on our podcast. Supporters there receive additional bi-weekly episodes that we record just for our Patreon members for as little as $2 a month.
Also, we'd really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe on whatever platform you're using.
And Apple Podcast reviews help us out tremendously.
Like and subscribe. Leave an Apple review. Join us on Twitter. Support us on Patreon. That's a lot of instructions. Don't forget to say thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.